Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints, just people.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky Podcast. How are you? If you haven't tuned in before, this is a Star Trek podcast where we are looking at every single episode of Star Trek. Well, I guess I can't say The Next Generation anymore. You can't say TOS anymore. We're going to be moving on to Deep Space Nine. But anyway, this is a podcast where we're going through all the episodes of Star Trek. It's not a new concept or anything like that. There's a lot of podcasts that do it, but we are one of them anyway. If that doesn't sell the show for you, I don't know what will. But if you're a returning listener, thank you very much for coming back. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for the movement into Deep Space Nine. You probably noticed the music. The new music. We're going to be going back to the original song and dance and all that thing. I've changed it. I've added a quote from Cisco. Out there are no saints, just people, which I think sums up the series kind of nicely. It was tough coming up with a quote for DS9. DS9 seems less quotable than TNG in a lot of ways, and a lot of it is some of the lines don't really stand out. It's not quite as iconic or like famous, so the lines don't really stick in my memory. So I was going through things, and sometimes the line is good, but the delivery isn't, and I can always edit the delivery and with the audio anyway. But it's sometimes it's just like the line is better than the reading that you'd want. It's not quite the epic reading that would go with the intro music. But yeah, it's kind of funny. We started with that music right for The Next Generation when we were doing that, and I changed it to TOS. I changed the music. I actually paid someone to write that music for me, figuring that I'd spend a little bit on the production value. And people were like, "Where is the original music? I don't want this. I just want the original music." And the original one is just some downloaded song I took off of the YouTube like Creator Studio and added a quote and a sound effect on top of it, and that's it. So we're going back to that. Hopefully you guys are happy. I got more complaints about where did the original music go than, oh, good job with the new music. That sounds nice. So we'll move back to the old music. Again, this is a Star Trek show. We look at every single episode. We have guest hosts is kind of the novelty feature of this. Every episode has not a different host, but like we go through a rotating stable of hosts. You guys are familiar with Clay, Trek About, Sean and Tana, and people like that. We're going to be bringing on different perspectives. That's kind of the point of it, just to sort of get it into the show and dig each episode a little bit differently, take on things differently, see what different people have to say about it. Don't want to get stuck in the same rut of having the same people on, and we get tired of talking about the same thing, which can happen, I think. It comes out 2 times a week. The release schedule going forward is going to be the Monday and Thursday release that I think worked pretty well. So an episode will come out on Monday dealing with one episode of Deep Space Nine, and then an episode will come out on Thursday. And the whole point of this podcast is what I'm trying to do is anyway to get the audience involved. So you guys can always comment, you can write to us. All that information will be available in the description of the episode or on YouTube or wherever. But yeah, I like getting the feedback. I like sort of going off of what people bring up, because people bring up ideas that I didn't think about, and it's stuff that maybe me or Clay or whoever is on the episode didn't really think about, Modi. So it's good to get that kind of feedback going forward. And what I'm going to try to do is get a little bit more audience participation going forward, and I'll get to that in a short second. But anyway, moving on to Deep Space Nine, there's going to be a few changes. Clay is going to, because DS9 is more serialized than the previous shows, Clay is going to be doing the Dominion arc. So I've written out all the episodes. I Googled everything, and I went on Reddit, and I went on Star Trek forums, and I tried to figure out what episodes people consider to be the main Dominion storyline, which ones are the ones that you can't really miss. So I've typed up that list. I'll put a link to it. If you guys want to look at it and let me know if there's anything you think that I'm missing or anything that shouldn't be on that list, just let me know. It's a bunch of episodes, and it obviously starts getting heavier in like late season 3, I think, and when there's a couple episodes per season. So it doesn't add a lot to Clay's sort of per season episode count, but he'll just be doing specific ones. There's going to be returning guests, as I mentioned, Modi, Clay, Sean, and Tana. There's going to be a few new guests I'm trying to bring on. So Trek About would obviously be an old guest, but we're going to be bringing on Trek Expertise. Zach Handlin of the AV Club should be doing the pilot with us. I've reached out to a few other people. There's Lore Runner on YouTube. I think he's a little busy now, but maybe he'll be able to come on in the future. Low Runner was actually requested by a few people, so if you guys want to message him and say that he should come on the show, just so it doesn't seem like I'm some random person bothering him on Twitter, that would be appreciated. And yeah, otherwise they'll try to reach out to whoever you think would be a good appearance on the show. Some people have made suggestions. I reached out to a few people who, some people don't get back, some people aren't interested, all that stuff, but it's always worth sending out your feelers to see who's out there. And if you guys have any suggestions for guests, that would be much appreciated. And obviously, since we're launching this in late August, Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, the new Star Trek series, is going to come out at the same time as we're doing Deep Space Nine. So we are going to be podcasting Discovery as it airs. The episodes for the Star Trek podcast will stay Monday to Thursday, but during the time where Discovery is running, we're going to do, one of the episodes will be Discovery and one of them will be Deep Space Nine. I think that's the best way to sort of stay sane and cover both of them at the same time. Discovery is going to be releasing weekly, so we'll be able to cover the one episode that comes out each week as one of the episodes. It'll probably be the Monday one if they come out on Sundays. Or, yeah, I would think so, to stay on top of it and get that sort of freshness take out of it. And so the Thursday will be the Deep Space Nine episode. And I think Discovery is a split season. So I think it's like they're doing like 8 and 8. So there's going to be a break. So it'll be the 8 episodes of Discovery. There'll be a 2-month stretch where DS9 is just 1 episode a week. They'll take the hiatus on Discovery for a couple months and we'll go back to 2 times a week for DS9. And then when the second half of the Discovery season airs, we'll go back to the 1-and-1. That's about it. I don't think there's really much else in terms of Deep Space Nine that's changing. You guys can always contact me at the Pensky File video if you have any suggestions for changes that you'd like to see. But otherwise, it's going to be the same show going forward, just with a little bit more variety and a little bit Discovery mixed in. So, the other portion of this is I'm just going to take 5 minutes to sort of plead my case about supporting the show. And I think that you guys are probably out there going, motherfucker, are you ever going to stop bitching about this Patreon thing? Not bitching, but talking about it. And if you guys listen to the Sam Harris podcast, I think you should. It's one of my favorite podcasts. But he's been talking recently about listener support for content creation, and I pretty much agree with him 100%. If you guys just want to give me 5 minutes to sort of pitch my case about supporting the show and why I think it's a good idea, then I'll do that now. Otherwise, you can just turn off the episode now if you're not interested. But I think that supporting the show is important, and supporting sort of all the media content that you consume regularly, I guess would be the way. Like if you're a fan of something and you listen to every episode and they provide a few hours of content for you for a week, it's good and everything to, run the ads on YouTube, whatever. You get a pittance out of the YouTube stuff. You're not doing this full time and all that. But it's good to support the shows, because the thing that happens here is that it allows you to move away from advertising. And the podcast has actually gotten advertising offers recently. And I've declined them because I don't want to, it seems like it's a lot of work. Not a lot of work, but it's something I'm not particularly interested in. B, I hate advertisements on podcasts at this point. There's a lot of podcasts you listen to. They have like 4 or 5 ads in their hour-long show, and it just drives me nuts that it's such an obvious, terrible product that's being sold to you. And I think that, the advertising model has really sort of destroyed a lot of discourse, and it's destroyed the way that like how content is produced and consumed and everything like that. Like you have to sort of get these hits. You have to please advertisers. It limits what you want to talk about. It limits the things you can say. It causes you to alter your content and stuff like that. And I think the way going forward, and the way that I'd be happiest with the show, is that I'm never going to do this full time, right? So I'm never going to become like a full-blown YouTube channel that does this full time and can quit my job and everything like that, because A, the stability isn't there. I've got a family I need to provide for. And B, I don't know if it would be fresh if this was my day job. So it's nice that this is my hobby that I can do and get a little bit out of it. It's nice to get the support, it's nice to get the views and everything. The only other thing I would say about it is that it does take about 10 to 15 hours of my week time. So it's kind of a part-time job. And I'm not complaining. I love doing it, and I would do it for free because that's obviously the way that it started, and only recently started with the Patreon to sort of shift into that kind of arc. But it's something I would do for free, but it does take a lot of time. And people have written to me just saying like it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but I know what they're talking about. It's like, how is the show doing? Are you do you ever feel the need that you wouldn't continue doing it? And I don't feel that way. And the way that I would definitely not feel that way is with a strong enough support where this basically becomes a part-time job. And to all the patrons out there, it's like truly appreciated. You pay for the costs of all this. You pay for the software costs. You pay for the hosting fees and everything like that. We have a little bit of extra money each month that we can give into giveaways, or I can give out as sort of co-host payments if it comes to that and things like that, and just sort of provide a greater stability in going forward with the show. So the patrons who are currently patrons, truly appreciated. It's like every dollar you give is equal to thousands of views on YouTube like that. I don't put the mid-roll ads in on YouTube, even though YouTube is trying to push me to do that. I don't want to do that. I hate those on longer YouTube videos where the ad rolls in the middle. People skip the ads anyway. They have ad blockers. It's not worth it. All I'm trying to say in the least sort of whiny way possible is that even $1 or $2 a month, and I think that our $2 a month tier is well worth what we give. You give 2 extra podcasts. I think that it's something to consider. Obviously, if you're in a financial shape where you can't do that, I totally understand. I appreciate you listening anyway. Don't worry about it. There's no big deal. But if you have an extra $1 a month, it's very, very helpful. It goes a long way. It sort of allows us to do things that we wouldn't normally be able to do, and it keeps the show on the forefront of things. It'll keep it coming and all that good stuff. It does sound like I'm being greedy, and this is making me very uncomfortable asking for this, but it's really just, you have to look at it from the perspective of the number of like just times where it's just like, oh, I've got to get this done, and like this is basically eating up a whole bunch of time with the baby at home and everything like that, and how can I continue doing it at this pace? And the way to continue doing it at this pace is to make it so that it is something financially worth it for me. Not that I'm considering quitting, obviously, as I said, but I've turned down the advertising offers. I don't want to put those on you guys. I don't want to deal with the advertising. I don't want to deal with having to deal with companies, and I don't want to have to deal with like, oh, I don't want to talk about this because so-and-so company is paying me a couple dollars to say something at this point. Patrons are the way to support that. Patrons keep the show what it is and what it will forever be, because you don't have to be beholden to anyone else. You just do what you want to do. And people who like what you do can support it at a fairly minimal cost. But anyway, check out patreon.com/the Pensky File. We give out a ton of tier rewards there. There's some new tiers. If you're a patron, you're going to be able to post thoughts on upcoming episodes and get read on the podcast. That's a new tier. So any patron at any level can, I'll be putting up a post and you guys can sort of leave me your thoughts and I'll read them out loud on the podcast and respond to them with the guests. $2 tier, get you 2 extra podcasts a month. They're off topic, usually not Star Trek. Sometimes they are Star Trek related, but it's like sci-fi, movies, films, TV shows. $3 gets you voting rights and vlogs. You'll get access to the monthly vlog that I do about behind-the-scenes stuff. You also get to vote on the content that we cover in the Patreon topics. $10 is the producer credit. You get your name listed as a producer, and you're going to get the option to guest host on a podcast, which will be the new tier, because I'm getting a lot of offers of people who want to come on, which is fantastic. I would like to get the audience participation going in that realm. The only problem is the logistics of trying to get people who aren't too familiar with podcasting on it. It is a bit of a roll the dice situation sometimes, even just from like a technology standpoint. And it adds a lot of sort of inconsistency in me having to sort of do a lot of background work to make sure that the podcast audio stays okay and that things are working out the same way. And you have to teach people sort of over and over again how to get these things done, and you lose track of where you are. Just sort of limiting the hosts makes it a little bit easier to schedule as well, and that's the only other thing that I'll go into on that. But yeah, check out patreon.com/the Pensky File. It's a great way to support the show. The show's not going anywhere, but your help and your support is much appreciated. That's about it. So thank you very much. We're going to be moving on to Deep Space Nine. I'm excited. We just watched Emissary last night. I'll probably watch it again today. We're going to be recording it with Clay and Zach Hanlon. It should be fun. I'm excited. It's blurry, moving from TNG TOS into Deep Space Nine. Everything's kind of washed out and blurry because it's not the new resolution, the high def. But I'm very interested. It was a very interesting pilot. I'm looking forward to talking about it. I'm looking forward to getting back into the series of Star Trek after the movies. We'll have a lot to talk about in that regard as well. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Truly appreciated. The shows have been a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun moving forward into Deep Space Nine. People seem to be excited about Deep Space Nine. I certainly am. And feedback. You can follow me on Twitter, Pensky File, at Pensky File. Patreon, we mentioned that. Facebook.com/The Pensky Podcast. And then email, if you want to email me, it's thepenskyfilevideo@gmail, thepenskyfilevideo@gmail. And all the links of all that information is in the video description or in the podcast blurb. You guys can go there. That's about it. Emissary, coming up soon. Thank you again, guys. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I went on about the Patreon a little bit too long, but it's something to consider. And I appreciate all the support, appreciate all the views, appreciate all the comments and everything on YouTube, appreciate all the emails. It's all very, very wonderful, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. See you soon with Emissary.